Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee. Hope you all are doing well today. I'm going to be talking a bit about a new book that we have coming up. My co-author, Katja Walsh, and I are really excited to be sharing a very exciting news. And the book that we're going to be writing, that we're writing right now, is about generative AI. And today's broadcast is going to be all about what the book is about. Would love to get your feedback. Love to get your participation in the book. We feel pretty comfortable now that we know what's happening with it to be able to share the top things about it. So, first of all, would love to have you share where you're coming from today. I don't have any additional questions, but maybe you could also just ask any questions you may have about the book, if we're going to be covering certain topics or not. And it's just great research for me to know what you would love to see in the book too, as well. And so, with no further ado, I want to share with you what the title of the book is. It's called Threats, Bets, and No Regrets: How to Create a Winning Generative AI Strategy. And the idea behind this is that the way the book is structured is we're really looking at all the concerns there are around generative AI. Is it too early? Is it too late? How do we create a strategy when there is so much uncertainty happening? I mean, how do we think about creating something when there's changes happening? We don't know how the world is going to look. It's as if every time you look up, there's another new announcement. So how do we create a strategy when everything is constantly changing? So what I want to do is just give you a couple things. Let me just get my slides up on here. I do have a couple slides just to help guide the discussion. And let me get my notes up here too as well. I do have people ask us constantly, how do you write a book about something that is constantly changing? Which is a really good point, because when you think about a book, you think about something that is going to be taking a long time to write. It's going to be out there for a very long time. And the miracle of modern publishing means that we're printing this book with a technology called print on demand, which means when you order the book, more or less the book is printed. We technically have a few copies actually on hand so that we can send it out the next day on Amazon. But for the most part, we print the books when people buy them. And the book, fingers crossed, will be available in both paperback and hard copy versions. And so this was not possible. You could do it before, but now we can do it a lot more easily. And it also means that we can update the book whenever we want. So when some major change happens, that means that the book really does need to change, then we can update it. But the reality is, things are changing constantly with the technology, but the problems that organizations are facing are fairly constant. And so we are writing the book based on how organizations can use generative AI, how to create a coherent and strategic strategy that allows them to win with a better competitive advantage. And those problems don't change that quickly. So we anticipate we'll have updates on the technology, how you can use it, definitely what the future of the technology looks like as things unfold. And we'll have more case studies and updated data on where organizations are. So let me get into the book and just share with you a couple things. First of all, and I'm fighting a bit of a cold today, so my apologies for sniffling through this. And you can also get these slides. Fingers crossed, I think they're up there. That's why I was a little bit late, because I couldn't get the right slides. I'll go back afterwards and check. I think there's a slide missing at the end with the version up there right now, but I'll make sure it's updated as soon as I get off this live stream. So the book is laid out in a couple of different directions. First of all, we are looking at the first section is so we need to explain what generative AI is, and especially why we think it's a mega transformation. Katya and I have been friends and colleagues since 1999, when we were both working at Forrester Research. And we had the saying at Forrester that technology changes everything. And again, we were at the very beginning of the internet boom, and we both have been active in the space now for 30 years, which is kind of hard to say. And the amazing thing is that, again, I've been in the space following business and technology, and I can't think of anything that's more transformative. This is more transformative because of the speed and the impact I think it's going to have. So we really lay out what is it good at, what is it bad at, what is it, what are the ethical and responsible issues that come up, what does it mean to be ethically and responsible users of generative AI, and also what is the future and what are the existential questions that get called up when we start thinking about these things. So that whole first section is just laying the groundwork for, again, if you're very familiar with the space, you can skip that whole thing or just skim it very quickly. But the second part, and again, I would love any feedback on things that you think we are covering, like this, agree this is something that's really needed, or say, wait, why aren't you talking about this? So I would love to get that feedback. The second part is going to be looking at how to create a generative AI strategy. This is the meat of the book. And we're facing the first thing we talk about is how the reality is this is really messy. Most strategies we like to think of is strategies are laid out step by step, and we're going to do things A, B, C, D in a certain line, in a certain process, in a certain order, and we're going to get to certain milestones as we go along the way, and it'll come in on budget and on time. This is not one of those things. And so this is a very different way of approaching strategy where you're going to be writing it down in pencil, but you're better off having written it down than not having a strategy at all. And some people are going super slow because of the risk, because of the concerns that the regulatory landscape could change. And my key thing here is that we want to lay it out so that you get this foundational strategy written out completely for an 18-month rolling out plan, and have it all done within 90 days, if not sooner. Because the reality is, if you wait and wait and wait to try to get to the perfect plan, you're never going to get started. And so within the first month, you'll have the broad outlines of the plan to get started, and you'll have a complete 18-month plan by the end of 3 months. And the way to do this is to first of all play defense first, because you cannot feel safe to do anything unless you know that your people are going to be safe, your data is going to be safe, you're not going to get in trouble, you're not going to end up on the front page of a newspaper someplace. And this is again, you want to protect everything that is important to the company, to your organization, because if you do not feel safe, then you will not feel comfortable exploring. And this is a space that absolutely demands out of the box thinking and exploration of what is potential. And then when you're making the big bets, this is why we have the threats bets and then no regrets. The big bets are these bold bets that are aligned with core principles, values, and your strategy. Now, your strategy may change, but you won't know it unless you really look at your strategy, test the assumptions that drive it, and say, do they still hold true with generative AI? Now, this is a very different approach than what I see most organizations doing. Most people are saying, like, what is the universe of all the things we can use generative AI for? And while that's an interesting exercise, you may end up just boiling the ocean and then coming up with some easy, obvious use cases that you can implement that aren't going to cause any ripples and any problems. And you can then say, yes, we are using generative AI, but it's not going to make a big difference in your company. If instead you start with basic principles and values, your purpose and mission, and start with your strategy and say, what are the big things, big transformative things that AI can do for us as an organization? Those are the big bets. And then you can step back and say, how do we take small steps to make those big bets happen over the next 18 months? But unless you know where you want to head, you can't take the small steps today. And what I'm missing from a lot of the conversations is this ability to think big, start small, and then scale fast. That's from my co-author Katria Walsh. She's a longtime data executive and AI executive, and she has gotten her hands very dirty implementing AI and big data in big companies over the past 15 years. So she knows what she's talking about. Keeping those strategic bets in mind from the very beginning is absolutely essential. And then finally, the no regrets part is really about how do you feel comfortable making all of these choices when everything is changing? How do you take the pragmatic steps? Again, this is a start small part, but it's in view of what is going to be out there. And the biggest and most important thing about having no regrets is to build that foundation of things that are not going to change. In a world where everything is changing, technology is changing, budgets, people, everything is changing. The things that don't change are your principles, your values, your purpose, your mission. Make those the foundations of everything that you do. And what we found is that the early adopters of generative AI, the people who started a year ago, as soon as Chat GPT 3.5 was announced, they were the ones who they consistently what they said was, we began with our principles, we began with our values. We wanted to establish how we were going to make tough decisions in the face of all of these changes that were happening. So that's what they did. And then also a key part of having no regrets is ability to update the plan every single quarter as you go forward. And this is a way to build agile strategy into the process because you have to. Generative AI is changing constantly. So again, you're going to take that eraser on that pencil, erase a bunch of things out, fill it in again, and have the plan again moving forward so that you can use it. But it's an idea again that the pencil is key. And Eric's has a really interesting comment here. In pencil, so Confluence with some highly collaborative tool, is that what you're thinking about? Can signing up on the plan and strategy and implementation be an agile project? Absolutely. Again, agile projects tend to be, again, traditional agile running in 2-week sprints, but it's against a higher goal, larger project. And so this larger project of where you want to be 18 months from now, or even ideally further out. But the further out part, again, I think is being done and taken care of by your long-term strategy for your organization. Generative AI is not going to necessarily rewrite your entire strategy. In fact, for most of these organizations we're talking about in the book, they stuck to their core strategy. They said our competitive advantage, for example, is in creating a fantastic customer experience. That is not going to change. But how is generative AI going to give us even more advantage because we're using it to shore up our competitive advantage around customer experience? Others are saying, our really big need now, a big weakness of ours, is our operational connectivity inside the organization. So, how do we use generative AI to streamline our operations, make sure we're talking to each other, summarize the activities, so we know what the right hand and the left hand are talking to each other about? So, again, depending on your strategy, you're going to choose different approaches to generative AI. Depending on where you draw competitive advantage from and deciding what you do and don't do for your long term strategy, you're going to make choices on generative AI. So, that plan, that agility plan, is all around that. So, Jay has another question, which is, should AI and large learning models, language models, be universally available and regulated like primary services like electricity and water? Well, this is an interesting debate because when you think about the social media, I remember the first briefing I did with Mark Zuckerberg, and he kept saying that Facebook is a utility. It's something that's going to be ubiquitous and as essential as electricity and water. And in many ways, you could say that it is, and it's not regulated. Again, the problem is that it's not a controllable, highly centralized resource that can be regulated. So the way that the US is looking at regulation is we're going to do some very high level things that protect core things like infrastructure, things that could go really wrong if generative AI goes wrong, things like utilities, electricity, our communications grid, cybersecurity. So the things that are out there right now is again, I don't think that LLMs will be necessarily like electricity and water and regulated in that way, but I do believe that they already are fairly ubiquitous just through our browsers, and they're freely available. Maybe not the latest models, but most of them, all of them, are available for free. So thanks to the internet, I think that's going to happen. Nicholas also just chimed in that, again, will it be ubiquitous? Will it be regulated? A key thing here that he's pointing out is that the energy needed to run the servers is immense. Again, I think somebody said that the amount of energy that was needed to train the latest models of ChatGPT could have powered the city of Atlanta for like 8 months. So it's a lot of electricity that we're talking about, and it raises a lot of issues around the environmental impact. Not going to talk about that here today, but I think one of the things we'll talk about is much more how do you actually use this as an organization, because one of the things inside the organization again is you do have to implement it. So I'm just going to go on and just finish the last couple of slides here, and then I just want to talk about how we can all get involved. So the third part of the book is making it all happen. These are the nuts and bolts about how do you organize for AI, how do you communicate, and communication is so key to build trust, both internally to aid adoption and also externally as you use it to engage with your customers, with your partners, and your suppliers. And it also, we want to look at the people aspects of this. We do what I'm finding in our research is that it changes the dynamics because you literally have a magic wand now that you can wave and people become superhumans. They have the ability to do things they never thought they could do. And leading superhumans is going to be requiring a very different type of manager. Managers in the past got promoted because they knew how to do the job better than anyone else. But now with generative AI, you probably know how to do the job better than your managers, and that will continue to be the case. So the roles of managers would be less about how to do the job and much more about developing people, making sure they have the tools to be facilitators for them to get their jobs done. So lots of implications around the workforce. So we'll talk about that. And then some nuts and bolts about how to use generative AI to engineer process, the requirements of having data. I like to say there's data everywhere, but nothing that you can actually use. So how do you get your data into the shape and place to be able to use it for your generative AI? And then we'll talk about lastly in the book, the generative AI tech stack. What does it take technology wise to do this? And we'll have a layout of how to actually phase your adoption of the technology so that it's a much lower level need for spending and investment upfront as you're learning. And over time, you can decide how much more you need to invest. But all the indications are that this is, again, the value in proportion to the investment is just overwhelmingly advantageous to you to do this. So, and then let me just see that there's a question here. There's a comment here from Sanjay. Strategy will work if purpose of generative AI is considered the technology. It's evolving over time. So we should gradually progress by having experiences with regulated planning, KPIs, and deliverables. Absolutely agreed. I am a big believer in governance, in measurement, in metrics, having a plan. But the one thing I would say, Sanjay, is the idea of gradually. Um, Gradually is a word that's relative to the speed of everything else that's going on. If we proceed at a level where we're comfortable with this, I think we're going too slow. You know you're doing it the right pace where you feel unsettled that, oh, I don't know how this is going to work out. And if you're feeling it just a little bit unsettled, but you know directly where you're going, then you're probably doing it at the right pace. Because the reality is this is going to be a very uncomfortable space for a very long time. And if you want to wait, if you have to wait until you feel comfortable, it's going to be too late. That's sort of my marker when it comes to these tools. How safe do you need to feel? How sure do you need to be that this is going to work out before you take the next step? And this is the key skill that we're pointing out in the book. In that, in the midst of all of this uncertainty, in order to win, you have to play the game. And if you're not playing the game, you're going at your pace of comfort, then you're not going to be able to keep up and be able to compete. So this is why we're writing the book. It's such an important thing, we think, for people to get off of the chair, jump into this, and do it in a way that's safe and responsible and thoughtful and strategic and in line with the objectives of your organization. All right, last part I want to talk about today is, let me get back into the slides really quickly. There are two ways to stay engaged. First of all, if you would like to get updates for the book, you can go and sign up. Here's the URL for that. Lots of URLs today, and I'll put the QR code for this one up here too, if that's easier for you to use. But you can go. It's an email list. It's really straightforward. But we're going to use this to give you updates about what's happening with the book, some early insights. We'll have some opportunities to read early chapters. And also invite some people to be early readers of the entire book. We really believe in getting feedback from people who are interested in this topic, and we are always eternally grateful for the feedback that we get from people who put in the time and can give us that honest feedback about what's working, what's not, what's clear, what's not. And then we'll also have early release copies for this group so that you can read it, tell other people about it. And then we'll also have some special launch events. We're looking at probably early February right now, fingers crossed. We have to finish writing the book, get it edited, published, everything else. So please sign up for that book, for book updates. And then the other thing the would like to do is to just invite you to be a participant in this research that we're doing. It is an AI moderated interview, and you can get it at this other URL. Let me go find it. And we do have, unfortunately, a revenue requirement for this. So we need you to have at least 100 million in revenue, US dollar revenues, to be able to take the survey. And we try to make it as low as possible, but just knowing our user base and our reader base, we need the surveys to be at about that level. But if you are interested, go and take the survey. We are looking for people from all around the world, from different industries and different roles. We ask that you hopefully know something about what your company is doing with generative AI. And what's interesting is it's not a traditional survey with like multiple choices. It is a AI moderated interview. So you'll have the opportunity to use a microphone, reply with your words, and we use that. We pull out the information from with the AI to summarize sentiment, actual survey data pieces, things that you have never even thought to ask. We can pull out of these qualitative interviews. And we're doing about 250 of them. So we'll have a lot of data from different places to be able to do that. So it's a really cool technology. If you are interested in learning more about this technology, I'm really excited to be working with this brand new startup called Outset.ai. They have a great case study on what they did with Weight Watchers. And you can read about that at this blog post at Outset.ai. You can find it on the homepage too as well. What they did with Weight Watchers is they got user feedback in less than 12 hours. I think 100 user interviews done. And usually, if you want to do these interviews, these qualitative interviews with people, it takes weeks because you have to schedule it, talk to people, understand what they say, collate the information. And in less than 24 hours, they had all of this rich data available to them. And so that's what we're doing with this, is that we can do all of these qualitative interviews and in a very short amount of time, get qualitative statements about what people are doing, but also be able to quantify it, put it into a quantitative study. For those of you who do research, doing research on brand new areas like generative AI is really difficult because it's hard to anticipate the sets of responses that people might have. And it's usually in the little nuances of small spaces that interesting things are happening that are really hard to capture in a traditional quantitative survey. So I'm very excited to be working with Outset. They've been great partners in this, and I encourage you to check them out. All right, so that's what I have for today. And thank you, Jay, for pushing out the Outset blog post into LinkedIn. So I really appreciate that. It's just hard to do that with this live stream. All right, so that's what I have for today. And so if you are interested in taking that survey, go to bit.ly/AI book survey. And I'm so curious what you all think about that. So hopefully that works pretty well. If you have any questions about how that works or comments about it, please let me know. All right, getting to the end of today's broadcast here. So a couple things. One of the things that we're very excited about with this book is the ability to customize it to to use AI to help generate the book, for example, with the research. And one of the things that people ask me is, well, are you using it to write the book? Because it's pretty easy to write it, right? And so I'm going to talk next week about how to use and create custom GPTs. And I will admit that I am using it for, again, a custom GPT. I call it Char GPT. It's great that I have a name that's pretty close to Chat GPT. It's called Char GPT. And I've uploaded all my content, the research interviews, into this bespoke custom GPT that only has that content. I can brainstorm with myself and write against myself, almost as if I have a personal ghostwriter who knows only the ideas and words that I have used. So I'll talk about it next week about how to do that. So next week we'll talk about custom GPTs, custom instructions in Chat GPT, custom GPTs, and these private LLMs that you can set up. So that's what I have going on. And so a couple that's what I have next week. So join me next week for that. Um, let's see. There's a couple questions here. Large state ownership can license the technology. Okay, yeah, Jay, you're absolutely right. So large organizations can do things and emphasize the safety. One person has a question. Could you post a link again? Let me get that link for the survey, and I'll post it in here. It's bit.ly/AI book dash survey. I try to make these as easy as possible. So the problem is I can't, it will not post to LinkedIn. So if somebody on LinkedIn can post it again to there, it can post it onto Facebook and maybe not Facebook, but it's on YouTube. But if someone could post it into LinkedIn for me, that'd be great. Let me just put up the banner again so you can see it. And here you go. So it's pretty straightforward. It's bit.ly/AI book dash survey. Let's see. And Kate, yes, Kate has been Kate Rieger has been a great partner in helping me think about the research around this. Yes, we are using Outset right now. They've been again just a great partner in making all of this happen. All right. Oh, and that was Lisa asking. Thank you so much, Lisa. That asking about sharing this with other clients. Thank you, Jay, for posting it to LinkedIn. Really appreciate that, Jay. I can count on you to do this. So that's what I have for today. I would again encourage you to take a look at some of the materials. If you have any questions, please ping me. If you have questions around, does the book cover this, or can you talk about that? It would be super helpful to have in the book. This is the time to do that because we're still writing it. We're putting the finishing touches on it. Okay, honestly, we're about halfway through writing it, but it's a lot of it's in shape. We have a lot of the things, so we are still very fluid. Can take a lot of input, which is why we like to share about this. All right. So, yeah. And Jay, thank you so much. You are my LinkedIn poster. So, my link poster. Thank you so much. Again, thank you so much, everybody. And hope to see you next week. We'll be talking about custom GPTs. It should be a fun time to learn how you can make these things really work for you at a different level. So, come in. We're going to have a lot of examples and some hands on practices that you can do too. All right, take care and please sign up for updates and for the survey. Would love to hear your feedback again on the book. Thanks. Bye bye.